How I escaped the broke mindset for good. For years, I was a prisoner, not in a jail cell, but in my own head. I had what they call a broke mindset, and it absolutely torpedoed every single chance I had at a better life. I truly believed, deep in my bones, that I was destined to be poor, stuck in this endless cycle of scarcity that sabotaged every attempt to get ahead. Picture this. I was convinced money was like a pie with only so many slices, and I was always the last one in line. Someone else's success, that meant less for me. A friend getting promoted, that felt like a personal attack on my future. It sounds ridiculous now, but back then, it was my reality. This is the story of how I finally broke out of that mental prison and found a kind of financial peace I honestly never thought was possible. And here's the thing, I'm not going to sell you some get-rich-quick scheme or tell you to invest in crypto or start dropshipping. This is about something far more fundamental, the operating system running in your head that determines everything else. So if you've ever felt like you're stuck in a financial Groundhog Day, watching the same patterns repeat over and over, wondering why you can't seem to get ahead no matter how hard you work, stick with me. Because what I'm about to share changed everything for me, and it might just do the same for you. Welcome to Money Sprint. Let me paint you a picture of what my life looked like back then. On the surface, things seemed okay. I mean, I wasn't homeless. I had a job, a decent one actually. I had a flat, a car that mostly worked, and I could cover most of my bills most of the time. From the outside looking in, I was doing fine. But underneath all that, I was drowning in this constant, low-grade hum of financial anxiety that never, ever shut off. You know that feeling when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your brain just starts running through all your money worries like some kind of cruel highlight reel? That was my life. Every single night, every payday brought this fleeting moment of relief, like, okay, I made it another 2 weeks, quickly followed by the familiar dread creeping back in. I'd avoid opening my banking app for days. My heart would literally start pounding at the thought of what I might see, or rather, what I wouldn't see. It was this psychological hamster wheel where I was constantly braced for the next bad thing to happen, the next financial disaster waiting around the corner. And here's where it gets really messed up. This fear didn't just stress me out, it ran my entire life. If I had a good month and got a little extra cash, maybe a bonus or a tax refund, this voice in my head would immediately whisper, "You better spend this now before something comes along and takes it away." And I would, every single time. A new gaming console I'd been eyeing, dinners out at restaurants I couldn't actually afford, clothes I didn't need sitting in my wardrobe with the tag still on, rounds at the pub for everyone. It was this vicious cycle of instant gratification that always left me feeling emptier than before. I was choosing the feeling of abundance right now over the reality of it later. And the worst part? I knew I was doing it. I just couldn't seem to stop. I'd tell myself these stories, these limiting narratives like, "I'm just not a money person," or "I'll never get ahead. That's just not how life works for people like me." And you know what? That belief became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every day I was proving myself right. Now I want to be really clear here. Systemic barriers are absolutely real. The wealth gap is real. Economic inequality is real. I'm not ignoring any of that. But in my case, the ceiling I kept hitting wasn't just external. A big part of it was the one I'd built in my own mind, tied directly to my self-image. And my self-image, it was of someone who was permanently broke, someone who didn't deserve more, someone who couldn't be trusted with money even if they got it. I was also plagued by what experts call a scarcity mindset, and it poisoned everything. When a friend got a promotion, I didn't feel inspired or happy for them. I felt resentful, bitter even, as if their win was somehow my loss. Like there was only so much success to go around, and they'd just taken a chunk that could have been mine. The idea of investing? Absolutely terrifying. The stock market seemed like this rigged casino designed to separate fools from their money. I was so scared of losing the little I had that I couldn't even think about the possibility of growth. I hoarded what I had, not in a savings account building interest, mind you, but by clinging to old habits and avoiding any risk whatsoever. Ironically, that turned out to be the biggest risk of all. Playing it safe kept me stuck. My life was small because my thoughts were small. I was trapped, not primarily because of my income, though I wasn't exactly rolling in it, but because of this deep-down belief that this was all I deserved, that this was my ceiling, my limit, my lot in life. And let me tell you, that's an exhausting way to live. The turning point. The moment that changed everything wasn't a lottery win. It wasn't some surprise inheritance from a relative I didn't know I had. It wasn't even a life-changing conversation with some wise mentor figure. No, it was a quiet, deeply humiliating Tuesday afternoon that I will never forget. My car, which had been making this horrible rattling noise for weeks, a noise I'd been ignoring because I was terrified of what it might mean, finally gave up on me, just completely died. I was stranded on the side of a busy dual carriageway during rush hour, cars whizzing past, feeling like the world's biggest failure. The tow truck driver was nice enough, but when he told me the repair would be over 1,000 pounds, I felt my stomach drop. 1,000 pounds. It might as well have been 1,000,000. I had nothing. Not in my current account, and definitely not in savings. I didn't even have a credit card with enough available credit to cover it. I had to make this string of painful phone calls, borrowing small amounts from friends and family, 50 here, 100 there, with each call chipping away at what was left of my pride. "Hey mate, really sorry to ask, but could you possibly lend me?" I must have made 6 or 7 of those calls, each one harder than the last. I remember sitting in the sterile waiting room of the repair shop, the smell of oil and rubber thick in the air, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, just feeling this overwhelming wave of shame wash over me. And it wasn't just about the car. That was just the trigger. It was this crushing realization that I had zero control over my own life. One single, completely predictable life event, a car breaking down, which happens to literally everyone, had completely shattered my world. I was almost 30 years old, with a decade of working behind me, and all I had to show for it was a broken down car and a list of people I owed money to. Sitting there, I started thinking about all the warning signs I'd ignored. Not just the rattling car, but everything. The overdraft fees I'd been paying month after month. The final notice letters I'd been stuffing in a drawer unopened. The way I'd been living paycheck to paycheck for years, telling myself, "It'll get better when I get that raise," or "It'll sort itself out somehow." But here's what hit me hardest. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't the universe conspiring against me. This was the inevitable result of my choices, my patterns, my mindset. I had created this situation through 1,000 small decisions, made day after day, year after year. That was my, "Oh, this is real" moment. The moment where I couldn't hide from it anymore. I realized my money problems weren't really about money at all. They were about my mindset, about the stories I'd been telling myself, about the identity I'd built as someone who just isn't good with money. I had been living like a victim of my circumstances, blaming everything and everyone, the economy, my salary, my upbringing, the government, you name it, but never taking real ownership of my choices, never accepting that I had more power than I was using, that I was capable of more than I was showing. Sitting in that waiting room, smelling like defeat, I made a decision. I was done being a passenger in my own life. I was done being a prisoner to these limiting beliefs that had been running the show for so long. It was time to stop thinking like a broke person and start building a new reality for myself. I didn't know how yet. I didn't have a plan, but I knew something fundamental had to change, and that something was me. That painful day in the repair shop kicked off a long, tough journey. And I'm not going to lie to you, it wasn't easy. There was no magic switch I could flip. No one thing that suddenly made it all better overnight. But as I look back now, I can see that my entire transformation boiled down to rebuilding my money mindset around 3 core pillars. 3 fundamental shifts in how I thought about money, about myself, and about my future. These three pillars became my foundation. Whenever I felt myself slipping back into old patterns, I'd come back to these. And over time, months really, they rewired how my brain processed everything related to money. So let me walk you through each of these pillars. Not because I've got it all figured out, but because these shifts genuinely changed my life. And if you're in that place I was, that anxious, stuck, frustrated place, maybe they can help you too. Pillar 1. Money as a tool, not an emotion. For most of my life, money wasn't a number in my bank account. It was a feeling. A whole mess of feelings, actually. Guilt when I spent it, shame when I didn't have it, anxiety whenever I thought about it, fear when bills came in, resentment when I saw what others had. It was this toxic emotional soup that I was drowning in. My financial decisions weren't based on logic or strategy. They were driven by whatever I was feeling in that moment. Stressed? I'd spend money to feel better. Anxious? I'd avoid looking at my accounts entirely. Got some extra cash? I'd blow it immediately because holding on to it made me nervous. The first huge shift I had to make was learning to de-emotionalize money. I had to stop seeing it as a reflection of my worth, my success, or my identity. I had to start seeing it as what it actually is, a neutral tool, like a hammer or a shovel or a calculator. You don't get emotional about a hammer, right? You don't lie awake at night feeling guilty about your hammer. You don't feel shame when you look at your shovel. You just pick it up and use it to build something or fix something. That's it. So I started asking myself, what do I want to build? Not what do I deserve or what's possible for someone like me, but simply, what do I want to build with this tool called money? This meant I had to ban a phrase from my vocabulary completely. I can't afford it. Those 4 words are a dead end. They shut your brain down. They put you in victim mode. They close the door on any possibility. Instead, I forced myself to ask, okay, how can I afford it? Even if the answer was, you can't, not right now, and here's why. At least my brain was engaged. At least I was thinking like a problem solver instead of a victim. This simple switch in language turned me from someone who things happen to into someone who made things happen. Instead of obsessing over what I lacked, I started focusing on the resources I did have. And here's the thing, I had more than I thought. I had skills. I could write pretty well. I knew a bit about web design. I was decent at explaining complex things simply. I had time, maybe not loads of it, but I had evenings and weekends that I was currently spending scrolling through social media or binging Netflix. So I started a small freelance writing side hustle. Just small stuff at first. Blog posts for local businesses, product descriptions, that sort of thing. Not because I magically had more hours in the day, but because I was now using my time as a tool to build the financial foundation I desperately wanted. And here's what happened. Money stopped being this scary, emotional thing. It became information, data. My bank balance wasn't a judgment on me as a person. It was just feedback on how well my system was working. Money became a resource I could direct with intention, not a monster I had to fear or a drug I needed to make myself feel better. That shift alone probably accounted for half my transformation. Pillar 2. Uncoupling self-worth from net worth. The second pillar was maybe the hardest one because it required me to dig into some deep psychological stuff I'd been avoiding for years. I had to untangle this belief, this deep-seated, barely conscious belief that I wasn't worthy of wealth. I had a classic case of what psychologists call imposter syndrome, but around money. Part of me genuinely felt that even if I did get ahead, I wouldn't deserve it. That wealth was for other people. People who were smarter, more disciplined, more deserving than me. And this feeling led to self-sabotage every single time. I'd start to make a little progress. I'd save up a few $100. Things would be looking up. And then this crippling thought would knock on the door. Who do you think you are? You're not the kind of person who has savings. You're not responsible enough for this. And I'd find a way to spend it. Some emergency would conveniently pop up, which, let's be honest, wasn't really an emergency. Or I'd convince myself I deserved to treat myself after being so frugal. Or I'd make some impulsive purchase that brought me right back down to the level where I felt I belonged. It was like I had this internal thermostat set to broke, and whenever I started rising above it, I'd unconsciously sabotage myself to get back to my set point. Breaking this pattern meant drilling into my head, over and over, day after day, that my value as a human being has absolutely nothing to do with the number in my bank account. Nothing. I started a daily affirmation practice. And look, I know how that sounds. It sounds a bit woo-woo, a bit self-help guru, a bit cheesy. I was skeptical too, but I was also desperate enough to try anything. Every morning, I'd look in the mirror and say things like, I am worthy of financial stability. My past doesn't determine my future. I am capable of making good decisions with money. I deserve peace of mind. And honestly, it felt ridiculous at first. I felt like I was lying to myself. But here's the thing. I'd been lying to myself for years with the opposite message. You're rubbish with money. You'll never get ahead. You're just not that kind of person. Those were lies too. At least now I was lying in a useful direction. Over time, and I'm talking months here, not days, those affirmations actually started to rewire my brain. Neuroscience backs this up, by the way. The stories we tell ourselves literally shape our neural pathways. I also had to stop comparing my real life to everyone else's highlight reel on social media. Instagram and Facebook and all that, they're basically everyone's greatest hits album. You're seeing the promotion, the holiday, the new car, the perfect brunch. You're not seeing the credit card debt, the relationship problems, the anxiety, the struggles. I was comparing my behind the scenes to everyone else's showreel, and that's a game you can never win. Instead of looking outward for validation, I had to find it inward. I started celebrating the small wins. Actually celebrating them, not just acknowledging them. Paid a bill on time? That's a win. Went to the supermarket with a list and stuck to it? Win. Moved just 20 quid into savings? Huge win. Each small, consistent action was a vote for a new identity. The identity of someone who was responsible, capable, and worthy of peace. And here's what's wild. Your identity is just a collection of evidence you've gathered about yourself. So every time I made a good decision with money, I was collecting evidence for this new identity. Over time, the evidence pile got big enough that I started to believe it. If any of this is hitting home for you, if you've ever felt that you're just bad with money, or that financial stability is for other people but not you, I want you to know that's a story, and stories can be rewritten. Pillar 3, falling in love with your future self. The third pillar is what really locked everything into place for me. I had to shift my time horizon. I had to fall in love with my future self. See, the broke mindset is obsessed with the present moment. It wants comfort now, pleasure now, relief now. Why? Because the future feels uncertain, unreliable, even threatening. So you grab what you can while you can. You've probably heard of the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment from the 1960s, right? Researchers put a marshmallow in front of kids and said, you can eat this now, or if you wait 15 minutes, you can have 2. The kids who waited supposedly went on to have more success in life. Better grades, better jobs, all that. For years, that experiment was used to preach about willpower and delayed gratification. Just have more self-control. But here's what's fascinating. Newer, more diverse studies have added a crucial piece to that puzzle. A child's socioeconomic background and their trust in the future are huge factors in whether they wait or not. If you grow up in an environment where you can't be sure the second marshmallow will even be there later, where promises get broken, where resources disappear, where adults can't be relied on, of course you're going to eat the first marshmallow now. That was me. I didn't trust the future. I didn't trust that if I sacrificed now, I'd actually benefit later. My experience had taught me that good things get taken away, that plans fall apart, that there's no point planning for tomorrow because tomorrow always disappoints. So my third pillar was to shift my focus from paydays to decades, from instant gratification to long-term freedom. From present me to future me, I started doing this visualization exercise. I know, more woo-woo stuff, but stay with me. I'd close my eyes and picture myself 10 years in the future. What did that guy look like? How did he feel? What was his life like? I pictured him waking up without that knot of anxiety in his stomach, opening his banking app with confidence, not dread, handling an unexpected expense without breaking a sweat, booking a holiday without having to put it on credit, having options, having freedom, and I started to really care about that guy. Future me became someone I wanted to take care of, someone I wanted to set up for success. He wasn't some abstract concept. He was real to me, as real as a friend or family member. So every financial decision became a conversation with him. That 150 quid pair of trainers I wanted right now, would future me thank me for buying them? Or would he rather have that 150 quid invested, working for him, compounding over time into more freedom down the road? This wasn't about punishing present me or denying myself everything. It was about reframing delayed gratification as an act of kindness to the most important person in my life, the man I was trying to become. I started automating everything I could, savings, investments, even when it was just 20 or 30 quid a month at first. I set up automatic transfers to happen the day after payday before I could think about it or talk myself out of it. Future me was the very first person I paid, always. Not the electricity company, not the landlord, not anyone else. Future me got paid first. And here's the beautiful thing about automation. It removes willpower from the equation entirely. Willpower is a finite resource. It runs out, especially at the end of a long, stressful day. But automated systems don't need willpower. They just run. That automated discipline created freedom. I was no longer relying on being disciplined every single day, which is exhausting. I was relying on a system I'd set up once and then just maintain. So where am I now? Today, my life is almost unrecognizable compared to that guy sitting in the auto repair shop, making humiliating phone calls to borrow money. Not because I'm a millionaire, I'm not. Not because I've got some luxury lifestyle, I don't. But because of the silence, the peace, the absence of that constant, nagging anxiety about money. That low hum of financial dread that used to run 24/7 in the background of my mind, it's gone. I can open my banking app without my heart racing. I can check my balance without that spike of adrenaline. An unexpected bill is an inconvenience, not a catastrophe, because my emergency fund is there to catch me. I make decisions based on my goals now, not on fear. I can think clearly about money instead of emotionally reacting to it. I have options, I have breathing room, I have peace. The goal was never to get rich, whatever that means. The goal was to achieve financial peace, and that's what I've got now. It's the freedom of knowing you have choices. It's the quiet confidence that comes from being in control of your life instead of being controlled by circumstances. It's the stability that lets you focus on what truly matters: your health, your relationships, your passions, your purpose. I stopped trying to look successful and started building a life that felt successful from the inside out. And here's something I've learned. Wealth isn't loud. It's not flashy. Real wealth is the quiet peace of mind you have when you go to sleep at night. Knowing you're okay. Knowing you've got this. That's worth more than any car or watch or designer clothes. So here's the truth. Escaping the broke mindset wasn't about finding some magic budget hack. It wasn't about extreme couponing or cutting out lattes, though there's nothing wrong with being intentional about spending. It was a fundamental internal transformation, a complete rebuild of how I saw money, how I saw myself, and how I saw my future. It came down to those three pillars. First, treating money as a tool instead of an emotion, seeing it as information and resource rather than a reflection of my worth. Second, unhitching my self-worth from my net worth, Understanding that I'm valuable regardless of my bank balance, and that I'm worthy of financial peace. And third, serving my future self over my present self, making decisions based on who I want to become rather than just how I feel right now. This journey is 80% behavior and psychology and only 20% technical knowledge. You don't need an economics degree. You don't need to understand complex investment strategies. You just need to change how you think and then let that thinking change how you act. You can do this. I promise you, you can. The first step is recognizing that you are not your circumstances. You're not your current bank balance. You're not your debt. You're not your past mistakes. You are the architect of your life going forward, and your mindset is the blueprint. Start by taking ownership. Not blame, ownership. There's a difference. Blame is about the past and makes you feel bad. Ownership is about the future and gives you power. Start by changing the question from "I can't" to "How can I?" That simple linguistic shift opens doors. Start by setting up one automated transfer to savings, even if it's just 10 quid. Start by writing down 3 things you want future you to have. Start by looking in the mirror and saying, "I am worthy of financial peace." You have the power to build a new reality. It won't happen overnight. There will be setbacks and mistakes and moments of doubt. But if you keep showing up, keep making those small, consistent choices, you will get there. If this story connected with you, I'd love to know which of the 3 pillars resonates most. Drop a comment below and share which one you're going to start with. There's something powerful about declaring your intention out loud. It makes it real. And if you want more content like this to help you on your journey to financial peace, real, honest content about mindset, psychology, and building a better life, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Remember, you don't have to stay stuck in the story you've been telling yourself. You get to write the next chapter, and it can be a bloody good one. Thanks for watching. Now go build something incredible.